Hey guys, it's Demi from Demi's Divine Designs, and today we're going to be doing a pattern that I have made a countless amount of times, honestly. And of course, I don't have any of the bags I made because all of them are either taken from me or sold. So, this pattern is from Kandou Crafts, and it is the project bag. This pattern is quick to make, doesn't use a lot of material, does not have any actual hardware, and comes together very fast. So we're just going to hop right into cuts, materials, and get started. All right. This pattern comes in 3 different sizes. Today we're going to be doing the large size, which I think is one of like the cutest sizes that the pattern comes with. You can use it for a lot more. So for that, the pattern recommends that for your main fabric, you need a 1/2 yard. Your lining fabric, you're going to need 1 yard. I'm also using this fabric for the cord channel up at the top. For your base, I'm using vinyl. And the pattern suggests that you have a fat quarter to a 1/4 of a yard. And then for my pocket fabric, they say that you can use this as the lining fabric. So I just had a 1/2 yard and it worked fine. Going through, I got this fabric at Joanns. It's like this Christmassy red cotton fabric. I got this also at Joanns. We're going to notice a Joann theme here. And I got this as Joann's for their Christmas line. This was also a Joann fabric, but this was actually their Halloween line, but it actually looks really cute with this one. And then for this vinyl, I got this from Wonderground Fabrics. And that's all like the fabric you need. You can get very scrappy with this and do different cuts for like each section, where you could do the whole exterior in vinyl if you wanted to. The whole lining as one fabric instead of having a different fabric for your pockets. Mess around with it. Play with it. And from the fabrics, here are the cuts that you're going to need. For the vinyl, you're going to need 2 cuts of your base fabrics, and you're going to cut out this little rectangle, which is different depending on the size you do. So make sure you're paying attention to that when cutting this square out. For me, since I'm doing the large, I cut the large measurement on this one. The other cut that I have of vinyl is for the handle. I did cut this out using the measurement that she had for the fabric handle because I like doing my fold with my handles. I like giving it that extra beef. You can also refer to the front page of the pattern to see what the cut is if you're using like a vinyl or a leather vinyl or a leather strap, since that cut would be different if you don't want to do the fold method with your handle. Then for my main exterior fabric, I'm using that fancy Christmassy looking fabric. And since this is an exterior, I am also going to interface this. This is the only piece that I am interfacing since it is the exterior and I'm using like a cotton for it. The pattern does recommend if you do cotton for the base to also interface that, but it doesn't recommend interfacing for the lining or the cord channel, and I do suggest you follow that when deciding if you're going to interface your panels. And don't worry, this will get ironed out when I adhere this onto that. Then from my lining material, I have the 2 lining pieces, again with that square cut out, using the measurement for the large bag. If you're doing the small or the medium, you will be cutting this a different measurement than what I have here. And I also have 2 cuts for the cord channels here as well, and neither one of these I am going to interface. I will be ironing out, but not interfacing. Then I have my 2 cuts for the pocket piecing, and this is pretty interesting that it's bigger than the lining piece, but it's still funny. So I have 2 of these, and I am not going to be interfacing these as well. You can if you would like, I just don't think it's necessary for this specific bag and its use. So keep that in mind when deciding if you're going to interface this piece or not. Other items that we're going to need while doing this bag is some rulers. Different types of rulers, always helpful, as well as different type of marking utensils depending on what type of material you're using. Since my material is on the darker side, I'm pretty much going to be using the chalk since I'll be able to see it. But if I had a lighter material, the chalk doesn't really show, so then I have my marker. Then you're going to need your thread, obviously. I'm using this Text 45 weight thread from Wizardry Stitchery. I really do like how this thread stitches out. I like the look of it, which is why I always go to this one. And since I do have an industrial machine, I can have this in my bobbin and not really have any issues. So that will also be in my bobbin. Pair of scissors, always good to have. I like to have a lighter on hand to melt my thread since I am using a polyester thread. If you were using cotton, don't light the threads on fire. It's just going to smoke up. It's not going to like melt. It's just going to go poof, pretty fire, but not what we need when making bags. Also get yourself a ton of clips. I love clips. Clips are my favorite. I have a bunch of these. I have my label that I'm going to be putting on the bag and double-sided tape to help me secure that on and keep it straight. You are also going to need cording. Cording is how the bag closes, so you kind of need a lot of it. And I got this from Joanns as well. I also have a kind of like a turning tool, like a pull thread tool. I think I got this from Joanns as well. I'm going to like link the cording on this and like yank it through the cord channels to make it easier for me to get the cord through the channels. And that's really it. There's not a lot that goes into that. So we are just going to get right started on construction of the bag. Now that I've gone through and ironed my interfacing onto my main fabrics, ironing out as much creases as I can, take both of your main body pieces and both of your base pieces. I like to do this kind of like together just because it's easier. So take your first main body piece. If you have a directional fabric, have the direction fabric being away from you. Take your base fabric and you're going to flip these right sides together going along the bottom section. So again, if your main piece is a direction, you want it to go top, bottom. And then if you have a lining piece that is directional, you want top, bottom being where the cutouts are. Then we're going to flip this right sides together, attaching the bottom of the main piece, the top of the bottom piece, and we're going to clip along this section, holding those two together. Once you have that done, I'm going to repeat this process for the second main piece, sliding this one out of the way, grabbing this one, getting rid of the label. Same thing, if you have a directional fabric, make sure your top direction is here, bottom direction is here. Take your bottom piece. Again, top direction should be here. Bottom direction should be at the cutouts. And we are going to flip these right sides together, attaching the bottom of your main piece and the top of your bottom piece, clipping into place along this section here. All right, then once we have these two clipped, we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch along this edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, securing our base fabric onto our main fabric for both front and back panels. All right, now that we have these two stitched, what we're going to do is we are going to flip these and we're going to press the seam allowance toward the bottom, which if you use the vinyl, it is going to be a little bit harder to do. So just lay this out however you need to so you can crease that seam down, folding it toward the base, like so. Oh, that looks really cute. Same on this one. I'm gonna fold this down so it creases toward the bottom. Like so. It'll hold more once I stitch it. Then once you have it creased enough that you know it's not gonna like go crazy on you, we're going to head back over to the sewing machine and we are going to top stitch along the bottom at an 1/8 inch seam allowance, securing that seam down toward the base, not toward the top. Now that we have these top stitched, I'm just going to separate these and I'm going to mark my centers just by folding this in half, lining up all the edges and just doing a tiny little notch on both the top and the bottom. Just a tiny little swoop and another tiny little swoop, like so. I'm going to use this one to place my tag to make sure that that is on there nice and centered. And then we're going to need the center markings for when we attach everything together, including the cord channels. So it's good to mark those now, or you could do it later if you're not doing a tag. It's completely up to you. Smoosh. Once I have my centers marked, I'm going to pick one to be my center, and I kind of like this one because that star is kind of towards the center more than that one is. So move this one out of the way. We don't need it yet. Grab your tag and double-sided tape. Bam. I'm going to put the double-sided tape just on the back of my tag. Don't need a lot. It just needs to hold it in place while I center. I'm going to take my center, and I am going to measure up from the seam where the two come together at 2.5 inches. Just because I like how that looks where I put my tag. You can put your tag wherever you want, however you want. This is just how I like to do it. And then I'm going to center my tag. Actually, I lied. I'm going to drop it down to 1.5 inches from that center because I didn't like how that looked. 1.5 inches. Find my center and a smoosh. Then I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and just stitch my tag into place. All right, once we have that stitched down how we would like it, grab your other exterior piece. And what we were going to do is we're going to attach the two of these, laying them right sides together, clipping on the 3 sides. I like to start by lining up where the base and the main panel meet, just to make sure that that's a nice crisp, like the corner looks nice. It comes together really like evenly. And clip. Do the same on the other side, making sure those line up together. And clip. And then I just go through and clip along both sides and the bottom. And you should notice that everything should line up perfectly, including your little cuts, your little like squares. All right, once you have all 3 of these sides clipped, we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch along these 3 sides at a 1/2 inch, making sure we are back stitching at the top and the bottom of each stitch, securing these really well. Now that we have those 3 sides stitched, what we're going to do is cut off kind of like little diagonals around the corners to help these lay flat when we box them. So kind of just take your scissors and cut towards your seam, but you're not going to cut through your threads. Kind of like phew, phew, phew. Kind of making like an arrow, I guess. Guess that would be one way to call it. Like that. And we're going to do that on both corners. Getting close to the stitches, but not cutting through them, because then what was the point of stitching? Then once you have these cut, what we're going to do is box up these corners. So we're just going to take our finger, stick it inside, and pull the corner inward. I like to open these to help them lay flat. You could nest them if you would like. I like to just open them. And then we're going to clip these into place, like so. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to tug at the corners, opening up these seams to help them lay flat. Then once you have both of these clipped, we're going to head over to the sewing machine and stitch these into place at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Again, I like to press the seam open to help everything lay flat to help keep my stitch nice and even. All right, now that we have that done, the exterior can kind of standish on its own, sort of, which means we are good to move this to the side and start building the lining. That's all we had to do for the exterior, really. So, moving on to the lining, you're going to want to start with your pockets. And now building these pockets is kind of, you do what you need to do. If you don't like the layout that she recommends in the pattern, you can always do a different type of layout. It's just pockets. It's not like science. It doesn't have to be that way. But take your 2 lining pieces to start out. The one thing you do have to do is make the pocket, which is important. Make sure you have the correct size. So I like to make sure, I'll take one of my lining pieces, like my actual lining pieces, and make sure that I have the correct width because I have a bad tendency to do it the other way. So this way, because you want the width to be the same width as everything else. So I have my width on that one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and fold in half like a hot dog. Well, is that a hot dog or is that a hamburger? I'm folding it lengthwise, not widthwise. We're keeping the width the way it is. We're just cutting the length in half. And what we're going to do is clip these sides together. And then for your base, you want to leave some type of gap so we can turn this right side out. And so I like to just clip and clip. Make sure I can get my hand in there is kind of where I'm at with this. Then we're going to push this to the side and we're going to repeat the process for the second pocket. Again, checking to make sure that you have the correct width. And then we're going to take the bottom and fold that up to the top, folding the length in half, keeping the width where it is. And again, we're going to repeat the process and clip along the sides, leaving an opening in the bottom for you to turn this right side out. Once we have both of these clipped up, we are going to head over to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch along this edge to this clip, back stitch, this edge to this edge on both of these at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, now that we have that stitched and we have the holes on both of the bottoms, we're going to repeat the process that we did like with the seams on the exterior where we're going to trim down these corners. I like to just go swoop, getting close, but again, not cutting through. Same on this one, starting at the base, swoop. And then these guys, I kind of just like to cut straight across. This is just reducing bulk. It's not necessary. It's not going to mess with the construction of the bag. It's just going to help these corners lay flatter. And we're going to repeat the process on the second one. Then once you have those all trimmed up, we're just going to turn this right side out. I like to stick my finger into where the corner is and push that out as I'm turning it right side out. Same on the other one. Slide in, stick my thumb where the corner is, and push that out as I'm turning it. Other side. Finger push. Top corner, finger push. And that's just because this is a very lightweight material. If it was anything other than that, it would be rough. You could take this to an ironing board if you would like to lay this flat and roll the seam in. I'm just going to stick my fingers in the seam in the hole and kind of just pull, tug, rolling that seam inward, laying it flat, and I'm just going to clip that into place. Doesn't have to be perfect. Again, it's a pocket in a lining. Nobody's going to be inspecting it. They're not. The only one who's going to know if there's a mistake there is you. Smoosh. Lay that flat. Let's move that to the side and repeat the process on this one. All right, perfect. Now that we have these two turned out and that hole clipped up, what we can do now is do some markings. There are 2 suggested ways to mark that she suggests in the pattern, which I like to do just because it works for what I use the bag for. You can use these markings if you would like, or you can come up with your own markings. Doesn't matter. Whatever works for you. The first one is simple, where we just fold this in half. Oh, my clip is right on the half mark. That is fantastic. So I'm just going to slide that over just so I have that marking there. And just do a little mark there. So I'm going to grab my ruler just to keep everything straight. And take my marking utensil and just draw this mark. Like so. Turning that clip. That's the first one. That's the only mark you have to make on one if you want it. Then for the second one, this is where we get fancy marks. And she tells you to measure 3 inches from each side to do your mark. I like this one as well. I like how this comes out when it's stitched. So I'm just going to do that. 3 inches, draw a line. Three inches on the other side. And draw a line. And now these lines are going to be our stitch lines. This is where we're stitching to create the pockets when we stitch the pocket panels onto the lining. So, starting with one of the pockets, move your other one out of the way. Grab one of your linings and lay it so the cuts are down. This is going to help you put the pocket on correctly, important. Then we're going to measure 1 inch up from the edge of your box, like where your box is, you're going to inch up. And that is where we are going to center our pocket. And it should be slightly smaller than your lining. And now for this, you can clip this into place, you can hold this into place, whatever you would like to do. You can pin it. I'm going to just hold it for dear life because it's honestly my favorite way to live. And what we're going to do is we are going to stitch this pocket into place. We're going to start at the top corner, go down, go across, go up next to this line, up, across, down the other side, again, next to it, not on top of it, going down, go across the bottom, which will close up this hole and secure it onto the lining, double time. Then again, we're going to go up next to, I like to just ride my presser foot right along that line where my needle is not here, but the edge of my presser foot is. Going up, across, down, across, and up. Backstitching on these corners, and I like to backstitch up at this top here just to help secure the little flap on there nice and tight. All right, so let's go sew. You might be able to see that better than me explaining it with my little finger drawing there. Okay. Now that this is stitched, you can see how the pocket is laid out, and it did kind of shift when I was stitching, which it's a pocket. I'm not worried about it. If you were worried about it, you could go through and seam rip, slide everything over, pin it into place, or clip it into place, or whatever floats your boat. I'm not worried about it, so this is fine. And we are going to repeat that process with the second side. So move this one out of the way, grabbing your second lining and your second pocket piece with only the one mark on it. We're going to repeat the process of measuring an inch up from when the cutout stops, centering your pocket into place the best you can. And we are going to, again, go through and just stitch it like we did the other one. Starting at 1, go down, ride next to the line, go across, ride down the line next to it, across and up, backstitching here. And I like to backstitch here just to give it some extra structure. Now that that is done, we are going to connect the two lining panels together the same way that we did for the exterior. The only difference is we're going to be leaving a hole down at the bottom for us to turn this right side out. So take your one lining and your other lining, and we're going to lay it right sides together, like pa-pow, like so. And then we are going to clip into place, leaving a hole. Again, I like to just use my hand as a reference. She does give you a measurement that you can have the hole. I'm just going to use my hand. Hand to make sure it fits. Hand, like so. And then clip everything else into place. All right, perfect. Once you have this clipped, we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and stitch these sides at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, leaving this hole for us to get our hand through. Back stitching really good at these corners because we're going to box those up next. Now that we have the lining stitched up, we're going to repeat the process that we did for the exterior where we're going to box up these corners. The only difference is now we have this little hole for us to get our hands in to turn this right side out. Doesn't change the process of how we put these corners together, just know you have that hole there. So we're going to take the one corner. I like to just stick my finger inside and pull. You can open up these seams, you can nest these seams. For this side, I like to nest them. For me, it's just easier to line them up that way than if I were to open the seam and fight with it that way. I'm saying that way a lot. Then we're going to clip into place, lining up the edges. Same on the other side, finger in the hole. Now with this one, since you nested it one direction, make sure it nests the same. You don't want it nesting in two different directions, then it's going to make the bottom all wonky. Then once you have that set, we're going to bring this over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch along the corners at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, perfect. Now we have the lining all complete with our sides boxed and we still have that hole, so we can turn this right side out when we are done constructing the bag. For right now, we're going to move this to the side because the next thing we're going to work on is our handle. So grab your handle piece, and what we're going to do is we are going to kind of like double fold this. I like to just crease this in half. You could take double-sided tape, which actually I am going to do because we know I have a double-sided tape problem, slightly, a lot. And I'm just going to line the tape right along that crease, like so. And then I'm going to peel off the tape, and we're just going to fold the raw edges in to meet in the center. If you made like handles or straps or really handles or straps, it's the same process. So we're just going to take this and fold to meet into the center. Continuing on all the way through. You could also take an iron and iron this if you were using like a cotton or something. Since I'm using vinyl, that's not going to work. You can clip this into place if you would like, which we're going to be doing for the next fold. But for this one, double-sided tape works fine. And it honestly does not have to be a perfect even fold. I don't measure often. I kind of just guesstimate, and my straps and handles turn out fine. So like so. Then we're going to take this and meet these folded edges together. And this is what we're going to clip into place. Keep all the way across. And she's perfect. So then we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we are just going to top stitch along both folded edges, securing the folds into place and completing our handle. Now that we have our vinyl stitched together, what we're going to do is we're going to measure 1 inch in from the top and just do a tiny little mark on both sides. Because what we have to do next is cut a diagonal going from an inch in to the corner. So I like to just go like this, lining up my inch mark to my corner, showing me that's where I'm cutting. Same on this side, like that. Then take a pair of scissors and just cut along that line that we drew. Corner, straight across. Straight across to our corner. Doing this cut is just going to help the handle lay flat along our exterior, which we're going to grab next. So grab your exterior and we're going to turn this right side out. Just flipping it out. Like so. Oh, that's looking so cute. Kind of looks like little Santa. All right, anywho, once you have this turned right side out, you're going to open one side and we are going to measure 3 inches from each from the seam. So you're going to take your seam, you're going to center it up. We're going to measure 3 inches, and that is where we are going to line up our handle. So you can either mark it first. Since this is moving on me, I'm going to do that. Do a nice little marky mark. You can lay this down too, if that's probably the smarter way to do it. Ha ha ha, brain will function. Line that up. Do your little 3-inch. Take the ruler, measure on the other side, 3-inch. Like so. Then you're going to take your handle and clip it starting at those 3-inch lines. There's the 3. Line that up. Do 2 clippies. Well, I like to do 2 clips. You do how many you want. I want to go more than 2 because I think you'd run out of room. Then we're going to keep this straight, pop this over, and again, start it at the 3, keep it lined up with the top, and clip into place as well. So then when it stands up, you're going to have it like that, where it's kind of like drooping off the side, and it looks adorable. Then we're going to head over to the sewing machine, and we're just going to base this in place. Just holding it, doesn't have to be perfect, just hold it on there, both sides. Now that you have your handle attached, we are good to put this to the side for right now. We'll be coming back to it shortly, so don't like get rid of it, but just like move it out of the way. Then grab your cord channels. And what we're going to do is we are going to fold in our raw edges. I do like to use double-sided tape for this, but I like to use my 1/8-inch double-sided tape to help hold everything down. So I'm going to tape up the short edges on each of these channels. Just bringing the tape right along the edge, does not have to be perfect. Once you have that set, what we're going to do is we're going to fold over the edges at 1/4 inch. So peel off your tape. That's why I kind of did less than what I need, since I know that I'm not going to stitch through it. My machine can handle it, just if I can avoid it, why not? So once I'm done fighting with the tape, there we go. Going to measure about 1/4 inch to fold. Press that down like so. Same on the other side. Fight with the tape some more. There we go. Like so, and then we're going to fold it one more time. And now this one I do like to clip into place because I'm not going to double tape it. Just one per side is all I usually do. Same over here. And then repeat the process on the other cord channel. Then we are going to head over to the sewing machine and we are going to top stitch along all 4 of these corners. Now that I have those edges top stitched, I'm just going to separate them. I like to just do it all in one go, just so I don't have to keep starting and stopping. Once you have that set, we're going to take this and fold this wrong sides together and just clip along the raw edges. And then we're going to repeat the process for the second one. Go, grab this wrong sides together, fold, and clip along the raw edges along the bottom. Once you have both of these clipped, you can run through and base stitch along the bottom if you would like. The pattern does also give you a tip if you would like to create like a little ruffle at the top. I don't think for this bag I'm going to do the ruffle, but if you would like to see me do a video showing how to do the ruffle, let me know and I'll make another one. I don't mind. I make a ton of these. They're fun. So then what we're going to do is I'm going to skip base stitching this close because I'm just going to do it all in one step. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, take this to the sewing machine and just base stitch 1/8 of an inch along the bottom. Since I'm skipping that, I'm just going to grab my exterior and I'm going to lay it flat like this. And remember those centers, that's what we're going to use to line this up. So fold this in half to get your center of your cord channel. This one I'm just going to do a crease. I'm not going to cut into it. But I'm going to open up my crease and I'm going to line that up with my little notch on my exterior. And we're going to clip this into place going over the handle. And when clipping, you should see that the channel doesn't go all the way to the seam. That is good. It is not supposed to. If the channel goes all the way to the seam, you misfolded this raw edge and you're going to have to refold it to make sure you have a gap from the seam to your channel. Once you have that clipped, we're going to flip to the other side. And I'm going to reline this because it was not straight. And we're going to repeat the process with the other channel. Folding it in half. Marking your center. Lining up that fold mark with your notch that you have. And clipping the channel into place, lining up the raw edges of the channel to the raw edges of your top exterior, which should be the only raw edges in your exterior at this point. And again, there should be a gap between your edges from your seam to your channels. Once you have that clipped on as you would like, we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch this into place at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just going right along the channels along the top raw edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have that stitched, your cord channel is attached and we are good to now put the lining on. This is the final construction part of the bag, but we're good. So with the exterior staying right side out, you're going to take your lining like the lining is supposed to be, and you're going to stick your exterior inside your lining, lining up the side seams, making sure your handle goes inside the bag. Pull everything down, line everything up. Make sure your cord channel also stays inside and doesn't get pushed up. You want to keep everything inside. Line up your seams. I'm going to open mine up to line them. If it wants to open, that would be fantastic. There we go. Okay, line those up. And then we are just going to clip into place all the way around the top of the bag, lining up the exterior with the interior, keeping everything inside. And this one I'm going to clip that way because it was already stitched that way. Okay, so just go ahead and clip around the top, making sure everything stays inside the bag. No handles should be sticking out, no cord channels should be sticking out, everything should be inside. All right, perfect. Once you have that clipped, what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine and stitch along this top edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, securing the lining to the exterior. Now that we have that stitched on, we are going to turn this right sides out through our lovely hole in the lining. Just stick your hand through and pull the exterior and the entire bag out. And then I like to stick my hand inside just to make sure everything is popped out nicely before I push the lining in, making sure you're pulling on those cord channels to keep everything straight. Now we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we are going to top stitch along the main panel, not the cord channel, securing everything into place, and that's kind of going to stitch your handle upwards. So we're going to head over the machine and do that now, top stitching at about 1/8 inch seam allowance. All right, now that that's top stitched, I did pull out the lining and I just stitched that bottom hole closed. And I'm just going to stick that back in. And technically, the bag is done. The only thing that we still have to do is we have to put the cord in. So let's grab our cord. For this cord, she does give you measurements on how to, like, what size the cord should be. For this one, I am just going to fold it in half and cut it, and those are going to be my two cords. Works for me every time I do it, so that's what I'm going to stick with. This cord does, like, shed, or whatever that is called, where it's like dropping little black dots everywhere, but it's fine. It's fine. So now that we have this ready to go, I'm going to grab my little hooky hook thingy, and I'm going to start by sticking it through the back cord channel, just squishing it through till that sticks out. I'm going to stick this in this little hook that's here. And it is a little thicker than the hook, so I kind of have to like jam it in there, kind of, sort of, like so. And close that over it. Give it a nice little push. And then I like to kind of first start to guide it through, and it popped out. So we're not going to do that. I'm going to try tying it this time. I'm going to flip this little hooky thing, and I'm going to kind of tie this slightly around this little hook as it pops off. Just giving it a quick little tie. This is probably the hardest part of the entire bag, is putting the stupid cord in here, but it looks pretty, so it's worth it. And then I'm going to slowly guide it through this channel. And I mean like ever so slowly. Making sure it doesn't like pop off of my thing, because then that's a waste. Like so. Then I'm going to pop this off. Then I'm going to stick my thing in the other side of the front one. So like if you did it coming from the left on the back side, you're going to come from the right on the front side, so that then we can pull it through and create like a little drawstring type situation. And then again, I'm going to stick my hook in the little knot I made, making sure it kind of jams itself in there. And then ever so slightly, give it little tugs to get it through that channel, like so. So then we have the first of the two cords in. You're going to do the second cord, but you're going to come from the opposite way. So see how I have like the tails coming out of my right side and the hoop coming from my left side? I need to flip it, and I need to have my tails come out of the left side and my hoop on the right side, which just means we flip how we did it on the last side. I'm going to come in from the right this time, heading towards the left. And then we're going to do the same on this cord that we did for the other, where I'm going to make a little knot, stick my hook in the knot, and then ever so slightly pull, it popped off. Ever so slightly pull it through. But sometimes it fights me. This one is a little bit harder to do than the first one, because now you have to deal with the other cord that's in there. So keep that in mind. If you do the ruffle, this is even more challenging, because then you have to worry about not having as much space to get your cord through, or your little fishy hook, or whatever you're using. So we're going to try this again. Third time's the charm, right? No. Let's try fourth time. No, I want you to go over that. My issue is that it just keeps popping off. So as long as I get it to stay put, we should be fine. Just stay on the air. Like I said, this is the most annoying part of the entire bag, is getting this stupid cord through. And it could be, if you have a better fishy thingy than I do, this could be a lot easier. I don't know of any better fishy thingies, but if you do, kindly let me know so I can save myself some form of sanity. Okay, there we go. Yay, now it's gonna go, I hope, I pray. Please? Yes! It made it! And then, since we came in from the right on the back, we're going to come in from the left on the front. So, same thing, slide, 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 get the little knot, loop that through, try to make sure it doesn't pop off as you feed it through this side of the cord channel. See if we can get this on one try. Oh my gosh, we are. Okay. As long as it doesn't get stuck and pop off. Please don't. Please don't. Yay! So then now we have it like this, where we have tails coming out of both sides of the bag. Pew, pew, pew. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie up these tails in little knots. I like to attempt to double knot, but this webbing, I mean, I like the double knot, but this cording doesn't let me double knot, so one knot is the securest that I'm going to get it. Same on this one. We're going to loop-de-loop and pull. And now your strings are looking cool. Like so. And then the bag is complete. Ha ha ha. And our little bag is done. It looks so Christmassy with the fabrics that we put on there. And it comes together very quickly, doesn't use a lot of hardware. The hardest part is putting that cord through the channel, and it could just be me. You could be a pro at putting that cord in there, and you get it done lickety-split. For me, no, I struggle every time I put that cord in. But it is worth it in the end, because the bag is so cute. Kandou Crafts has this kind of labeled as a project bag for like knitters, crafters, crocheters, obviously crafters, but knitters and crocheters, so you can like put your crocheting needles and all of your counters and all the stuff that you would need in there. Honestly, I think anybody could use this. I was using this for like scrapbooking supplies. I was even using it for some of my sewing stuff, putting extra like threads and stuff in here before I have how I store my stuff now. This is perfect, and honestly, I think it's a cute little gift that you could use for like Christmas. You could load this up with like, maybe you're giving it to like a little girl. Put like a little Barbie doll in here and put like little accessories, and it comes in like a little Santa bag if you do it with the white and the red, making it look like Mr. Claus himself has appeared. But I highly think you should give this a try. I think this is a great beginner pattern, and you can make this more challenging depending on the materials that you use, the interfacings that you use if you choose to use any, and if you play around with those pockets. I wonder if a zipper pocket would be cool in here. Don't know. Haven't tried it. Should try it. It'll be on my list. If you want to change how the pocket markings are, you don't like how she has them, come up with your own markings. It doesn't matter. It's a lining. It's a pocket. It's nothing that's functional in the bag that is going to change the look or the feel of it. I will have a link to the pattern in the description, as well as a list of where I get all of my materials. And if you have any questions, as always, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching this week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!